Good afternoon. Today I'm talking to Jenny. Hiya, Jenny. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Donna. Firstly, thank you for inviting me onto um, this chat show. So I'm Jenny O'Brien. I'm an Irish writer. I'm currently writing a crime fiction series set in Wales, which sounds a bit odd. But basically, when I was a teenager, my parents decided to retire to Llandudno. And then when I finished my nursing, I joined them. So I lived in Llandudno for a couple of years before moving to sunny Guernsey. So that's where I live now with my hubby and 3 children, and it is overcast and grey and looks as if it's about to rain, but that's okay because I don't have my washing out. I started writing books for children about 15 years ago. I had a story in my head. When I was younger, I was bullied, and I just wanted to write something to help raise the self-esteem of bullied children. So it doesn't matter what you look like or about your personality. Nobody should treat you any differently just because you're different. So I wrote a book. I actually wrote it in my coffee breaks at work. The twins were 2. So I'd kept a little notebook in my scrub pocket and just carried it around. And after about 6 weeks, I had 20,000 words down. So I tried to get a publishing contract and basically they laughed at me, but that's beside the point. I wasn't going to publish it then, self-publish. I thought, no, what's self-publishing anyway? And too much hard work. So I left it for about 5 years, carried on writing. And then about 5 years later, a bullying incident happened to one of my children. And that night I self-published on the Amazon publishing arm. And then I went in the garden and I murdered some weeds. So another children's book followed, Granny's Gone AWOL in Guernsey, which is actually a charity publication for a local children's cancer charity. So I've written it, but they then have published it and take all the profits or all the proceeds. And then I dipped into romance. So I have about 5 romance books. And then after that, Valerie Keogh, the amazing Valerie, told me to write crime. So I came up with the idea for The Stepsister. This is the wrong cover. I've got a newer cover than this, but I'm not very organised, so I need to order myself one from Amazon. So I published The Stepsister, and it stayed in the psychological thriller top 100 for about 5 weeks. And that was without any advertising. I just gave it a go. It's a thriller set between Guernsey and Holland. Which sort of inspired me to write another thriller. So I came up with the idea for a crime series set in Wales. So this is the book cover for the first one, Silent Cry, about a second-generation Italian Liverpudlian detective called Gabriella Darren, who everybody calls Gabby. She's quite feisty. She's short and round instead of being tall and thin. She's not an alcoholic. She doesn't have any great backstory. Her parents didn't die in a road traffic accident. She's not nasty and horrible, but she does say what she thinks. She's quite feisty, as I've said. And she has a very difficult case in South Wales, which is where Silent Cry happens, about a missing baby. This book, by the way, is currently free, but probably just for today, not for much longer. And then because the case is so terrible, the ending is so terrible, she's moved to North Wales, to Llandudno, which is an area I know a lot better. And then the cases continue. There's Darkest Night. So the first 2 I self-published. And then after Darkest Night, I did a bit of advertising with a BookBub deal. I'd never tried BookBub before, and I know it's quite difficult to get a deal with them, but they actually accepted me on the first go with Silent Cry. And because of the BookBub deal, for one day, it ended up on #1, both sides of the Atlantic, just for one day. But at the same time, I had decided to just one last try, Valerie again pushing me, thank you Valerie Keogh, to go for publishing contract. And the same day it got to #1 was the same day it landed on the editor at HarperCollins HQ Digital's desk. And she said to her team, read that straight away. So they then offered me a 3-book contract which the third one of that contract is Fallen Angel. That was published a few months ago. And then when that came out, they offered me another 3-book contract. So the fourth one in the series, Lost Souls, which is again set between Llandudno, Colwyn Bay and Carnarvon, is about a 10-year-old girl, Ellie, who runs away. She teams up with a 19-year-old homeless lad. Something has happened to make Ellie run away, and he's determined to find out what. At the same time, in the local crematorium in Colwyn Bay, Martin, the odd jobs man, is cleaning out the cremator, and he finds 3 hip replacements. Now, it's okay to have 1, and some people have 2, but nobody has 3 hip replacements. So just a few intriguing stories that have come together, and maybe they're linked, maybe they're not. There's going to be book 5, which is written, and it's with my editor, Drew C. Horty now, because Abby's on maternity leave. And then I'm writing book 6. I'm working on the ending of book 6 at the moment, just tidying up all the loose ends. I'm a bit of a pantser. Valerie and I, we speak every day, and we both bemoan the fact that we can't plan a book to save our lives. We're blank page girls. And I start with an idea, you know, a 1-line idea, which my editor is amazing and agrees to, no synopsis, and then just run with it. And then at about 60, 70%, I've got to go back and tie up all the loose ends, which I've left, that you could drive a bus through. But it seems to work for me, and that's the way it is. You know, in another life, I'd be a plotter, but in this life, I'm a pantser. I don't know what happens until I get to that part in the book. What else? I'm also a nurse, so I work on a busy rehab ward 25 hours a week. Worked all through COVID, just carrying on really at the moment. I would like to retire at some point, but 3 teenagers, all very clever, all wanting to go to, well, one is at university, the University of Home, because he's not at university, he's actually in my other room studying, but he's got exams at the moment. And then 2 other, the twins are now 16, and they both want to go to uni. So I think I'll be nursing until I'm about 90, maybe 95. And that's it. So I work, I write. I'm also an avid reader. I run a book column for the local press, newspaper then. Every 2 weeks, I present three books that I've read in the last 2 weeks. Just my way of helping writers as well. So that'll be local writers, new writers, established writers, just books that I like and enjoy. And I'm an all year round sea swimmer for my sins. I'm not very good, but I do go in January and February in my bathers, no wetsuit, and scream a bit. Yeah, so I'm a bit mad. That's it. That's me. I can't think of anything else to say. I'm going to have some coffee.
So did you always want to write?
I've always read, and I always thought, like most people, that I had a book in me. But until I actually decided to write Boy Brainy, that first book, no. And it took me a year to write the book, because I've never been on a writing course, although I have sort of picked up, I've completed a writing course sort of since, but I've never been on a writing course before. So apart from schoolwork, I've got a degree in nursing, so, but that doesn't help in writing a book. So yeah, I always wanted to, but until I had that story in my head and the character, and then after a year of the character forming in my brain, the guts to write it from somewhere. It took off from there really. I just found I enjoyed writing. I put Boy Brainy on for free on Amazon because I didn't think it was good enough that people would want to pay for it. And it's since it's been on, I've given away hundreds of thousands of copies. It's #1 in Arthurian Legends for free, and it has been for 5 years or so. Just people like it. I think it's average 4-star something reviews, but a lot of because it's free, it's worldwide. So some people don't really get that it's set in Wales around Conway Castle. It's got the ghost of King Arthur. They might not know who King Arthur is, whatever, but it's fine. It helps some kids. I've got some lovely reviews from kids saying that it helps them. So that's lovely. If it helps one person, that's fine.
And were you a big crime fiction reader before you decided, or before Valerie convinced you to go into crime?
I was a huge crime fiction reader until my son was born. So he's now 19. So until his birth, I read everything, the Jeffrey Deaver, James Patterson, Connolly, all of the big books I'd read, all of Agatha Christie. And, you know, my husband used to say, how can you read that? You know, because it was the dripping blood down the wall sort of things I read. And then I was reading a book, Joel was in his bassinet, and it was a pretty horrible book, and it was about a paedophile. And the boy that died, it was in France, can't remember the name of the book or the writer, but it was, I think, 11-year-old on a bicycle, and this paedophile got hold of him. And the boy's name was the same name as my son. And I didn't touch another book for ages. My mum then, God rest her soul, she got me into romance. She said, you have to read, you love reading, you're not going to read crime at the minute. So she sent me a box of Mills and Boon, would you believe? And I started back into reading after about 6 months break, reading Mills and Boon, and it sort of got me onto the romance things, and I enjoyed them. You know, the romance is easy to a certain extent. You don't know the start or the middle, but you always know the end is going to be happy ever after, and that's what I needed at that time in my life. And from that, I came up with this English Woman series, which is English Woman in Paris, English Woman in Manhattan. There's a few of them. English Woman in Scotland. Just very light romance, nothing, you know, no 50 Shades of anything in them. And I enjoyed writing them, and then I moved on from that. I started reading crime again when the twins were about 11, 12. And it just sort of moved on from there. Okay.
And you've said that you have 3 kids and you're a nurse, so how do you find time to write?
So everybody asks that. So I basically don't do anything else. I work, I write, I read, I sea swim. This part of the house looks fine. So I blitz the house after each book is finished. And in between of an evening, I go and do some gardening, do a bit of gardening. I always have notebooks around the place. I use my phone a lot. I use voice dictation on my phone. I can crack up 200-300 words on my coffee break using my phone. And then it makes the second draft a nightmare if you use dictation. But I do it, and then I just get my word count up. So the book 6, probably about 30,000 words of that has been on my phone in the car, hanging around for the kids, or on my coffee break at work, just on my mobile phone, and using the software that's in there for dictation. And then I look at it afterwards and I think, really? Teapot? What was I meant to say? The man looked at her and teapot, and I'm thinking, you know, I've got an Irish accent, and they're obviously plumbed in for either American or sort of English, and sometimes it's quite hilarious, but I sort of work it out in the end.
And when you started your crime series, were you planning on it being a series?
I planned to. I wrote one, published that one, which is Darkest Night, and then Fallen Angel I wrote at the same time I was querying HarperCollins, then HQ Digital, and so book 2 was written. I was editing it, and it was on pre-order with a lead in for about 3 months pre-order, the maximum they could give me, so I could work on it still. And I didn't want to let down the orders. I think there was about 1,700 orders. So I said to HQ Digital, when they offered me this contract for 3 books, the third one I hadn't written, that yes, I'd be happy to go with them and give you those 2 books. But that book has to be published just for a day, so we can not let the readers down, because that's not really fair, you know. And you've got to not let your readers down, because that's quite bad news for a writer. So I did that, and I had to come up with an idea for Fallen Angel, which I think of the series so far is probably my best book, in that it's the most complex. I sort of upped my game with that one, and I've tried to sort of follow that through. We'll see. But it's doing quite well, Fallen Angel. They're all good, but that one's, I've blown up a house in Fallen Angel, and it's actually in my mind's eye. It was my mum's house, and that's quite funny. So because when I wrote it, I had my mum's house pictured in my mind when I was doing
it. If you were to be a character in any of your books, which would you choose?
Oh, I'd have to be Gabby, because she's a bit like me in that, except that I've got a bit of a filter. Sometimes I don't have a filter, and sometimes I do say things I shouldn't, but I try not to. But she doesn't have that much of a filter. She does say what she thinks. She's short. I'm short. I'm not sure I could write a tall character. I don't think I could get my head around writing about a tall character. And that, I know that sounds strange, but I'm not skinny. You can see that by looking at me. I like chocolate. She likes chocolate. Her favourite tipple. She has a glass of red Barolo, which is an Italian wine, and she loves Jacob's mini cheddars. My uncle used to work for Jacob's factory. It's an Irish company, and he used to be the security guard there years ago. So I just have a look. So that's her favourite tipple, and I'd given her that favourite tipple. And I went to the supermarket with my sister in Clondidno, and I said, let's see if we can find a bottle of Barolo, because I didn't know what it tasted like. We were in Aldi, and I found this bottle. I thought it was £5, so I bought it. And then when I came to the checkout, it was 15, and I thought, because I wouldn't spend 15 quid on a bottle of wine, but it was in my basket. So that night we had this £15 bottle of wine. It was very nice, but I won't be buying it again. Not 15 quid.
Yes.
I go for the bin ends.
Yeah. Are there any secret jokes or messages in your books that only a few people will understand?
No, not really. Because it's a series, it does follow the characters. So, and there's quite a few characters to follow in a way, but each book is also a standalone. But I do a little bit of a backstory in each, not much, because I think that gets quite boring for the reader, but just a few little inserts in chapters, few little, not even paragraphs, sentences, so you can get the idea of the characters. So, for instance, I've got Owen, who's my staunch bearded Welsh man who's got a photographic memory, married to Kate, who wears the trousers in the house. I've got Jax, who's a 26-year-old, tall, handsome, floppy-haired, blonde bloke who's got a speech impediment, and there's sort of a bullying aspect to that. So one of my children has a speech impediment, so sort of that part of it was quite easy for me to do, and I wanted to include it. Then I've got a chap, what's he called, from The Chase, that black gentleman from The Chase. But in my mind's eye, that's what he looks like, but he's a younger version, Malachi Devine. He basically says what he thinks, and he's got no filter at all. And then I've got Marie, who's going through a divorce. She's her husband runs off with somebody else. She's been going through fertility, desperate for a child. That's quite tragic, that bit. And then I've got Gabby's relationship with the pathologist, who appears in book 2, Darkest Night, when she moves up to Clondidno. There is a bit of a romance there, but it's not a romance that you think about, because I made it sort of a rule, then I was cutting off the romance bit. So they've got a really feisty relationship, and she says exactly what she thinks to him, and he says it straight back to her. So if you sort of picked up book 3, you might think, oh my goodness, but there's backstory in book 2 when they really are cat and dog to each other. So yeah, there's a few. Although I read crime, I try not to read police procedurals that much, because that's what I'm writing. I want it to be fresh, which is quite difficult. So I still read romance. I still read psychological thrillers. I try not to read too much police procedural, because I don't want other people's ideas to filter in. I want to come up with unusual crimes, and that's quite hard, because it is quite a flooded genre, really. As well, The World and His Wife seems to be writing crime series at the moment, so it's quite difficult to keep it fresh. So that's why I try and avoid reading too much.
What's the most interesting thing you found while researching your books?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think I'd be arrested for a start if the police got into my Google. I don't know. I spend a lot of time along the A55, which is the road in North Wales that just runs along the coast, because I like to try and get details right and distances right and all that sort of thing. So that's not interesting. That's boring. But the boring has to be done because some bright spark will say, well, you've put your character in, say, Swansea, and they're driving to Cardiff, but you've given them half an hour when it's a 2.5 hour journey or whatever. So you have to be quite particular with the boring bits. This morning, what have I been researching? I was in Manchester this morning, and I was looking for a Coronation Street type road, with houses either side, red brick, and I wanted to have a road that had a Manchester name, but that wasn't a real road. So I was looking up. I went on to an estate agent, and I was looking up houses for sale. So there's a place in Manchester called Bourneville Close. So I've used Bourneville, but I've turned it into Bourneville Road, and it doesn't exist in Manchester, and picked a fictitious number 26. Something nasty happens there. So I just wanted to make sure that it didn't exist, basically. I like to use real places. So there's a coffee shop called, I think it's called Little Lovelies or something, which is in Mold, which again in North Wales, which I spoke to the owners and they said, yes, they'd like to be included. So I've used them. There's a cafe in Llandudno called Take a Break, and I asked them would they like to be included, and they said yes. So I'd like to include real places, so that if people go to the area and they see it, they might say, oh well, yeah, that's in the book. But I also use fictitious for the nasty stuff.
Yeah, imagine they were honoured, weren't they, both them cafes to be included?
They were, it's yeah. I think there's a pizzeria I've also used in the book 6, the one I've done, and a guest house. Capri Guest House. That's in Llandudno, just around the corner from the pier. It's a little guest house. So yeah, book 5 features cheese. Castile Cheese, which is an award-winning cheesemaker in North Wales. She was delighted to be included. So my murder victim eats her cheese. Excuse me, my son is giving me coffee, so thank you, Joelle.
How's it going?
It's going fine. I hope it's going fine. Is it going fine?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry. If she knows.
Yeah, I've had that too. The weather, but hay fever is still.
Oh yes, no. At work, it looks as if I'm bursting into tears all the time, because if somebody mows the lawn 2 miles up the road, my eyes start streaming. It's ridiculous.
Do you ever dream about your characters?
Not my characters as such, but I have written a book based on my dreams. So Silent Cry, the first one in the series, there was a gentleman in Guernsey who sadly he died. He was found dead in a car, burnt out car. So there was a murder about 3 years ago. And that night, it was on the news, and that night I had a dream. And there was a dog in a car, and something happened to the dog. And I thought, if I change the dog to something else, and if I change the man to something else, and I change the location to Wales, I've got a book. So yeah, that was the inspiration for Silent Cry. So no, I don't dream about my characters, but I do dream about my boss at work, which is hilarious. Her name is Ollie. She's lovely. Anyway, she's married to a friend. So I dreamt about 2 nights ago that her husband had come to me, and he'd said that he was getting a divorce, and that he was going to choose a ring. Could I help choose a ring for his new bride? So I said, fine. So a beautiful pearl ring. It was lovely, intricate, etc. And then he said that, and I'm going to marry such and such. And then I woke up. So at work the next morning, so this is 2 days ago, walked into work, and I said, Ollie was there. This is the ward manager, and it was a room full of people. There was about 10 nurses in there. I said, Ollie, I've got some devastating news for you. I said, your husband has come to me 3 o'clock in the morning. So she realized it was a dream because I didn't want to think she's getting divorced. He's divorcing you. And she started laughing. I said, yeah, I said, I know. And the ring that he's buying for his new wife is pearl. It's really beautiful. It's got 7 bands and it's really intricate. It's lovely. So she was laughing away. And then I said, and his new wife is such and such, who is somebody that we both work with, and is somebody that he wouldn't ask out. And the whole room was in hysterics. But it was a lovely start to the day. We're really busy at the moment, and it was just before it built up again. So yeah, it was quite funny. At times, you know, I do say what I think. As I said, yeah, sometimes I should have a filter and I don't, but I put that in my character. You know, she says what she thinks.
Brilliant. Have you made lots of author friends?
Absolutely loads. I'm blessed with my author friends. So there's Valerie Keogh. There's just such a supportive book community out there. You know, I actually posted today on Twitter saying, you know, Karen Norden, she's a new writer for HarperCollins. John Barlow, they both read and reviewed my book, the latest one. Also book bloggers, you know, can't forget them because they've been amazing, taking me under their wing. We've got Joe Robertson, etc. There's just loads of them. Yeah, so I haven't actually come across anybody who's been negative or horrible, and that's great, really. I think it's important to try and be nice to people. Something I've always tried to do. Sometimes I fail, but you know, it's what goes around comes around. As far as I'm concerned, if you're nasty, you'll get it back with spades. So I just try and be nice, and you know, I will walk away if sometimes you get a negative on Twitter. It's happened a couple of times where I've had to block people. But I just walk away, and it's a life lesson, isn't it? But they were never writers; they were just oddballs. Who came up in my feed. So, yeah, I like to be nasty to people, you know, and it doesn't. I don't know why to do it, so it doesn't get you anywhere. All it does is get you a reputation for being nasty. So, yeah.
And do you get much feedback from readers apart from bloggers and stuff?
Yeah, I've got some lovely readers. You know, my series has been out a year, so I'm not mega. I published the first 3 books 3 months apart, so very quick succession. So my readership is growing, but I've met some wonderful people along the way. There's Beverly Ann Hopper. She runs a little book group who found me. Michelle Turner. These are women who found me way back when I was self-publishing at the very start, and they've stuck with me. Just normal, average people who like to read. Yeah, and I think it's good for a writer to keep them in your eyesight when you're writing your book. I write for myself, and sometimes I write things in my book that I know are going to annoy my readers, and that's quite difficult because you're trying to give them the best experience, but your characters lead you into which direction they go. I know you've probably heard other writers saying that, and I know I'm writing something in book 6, and I know I'm going to upset them. I'm going to upset them to such an extent on the acknowledgements. I'm going to have to start with an apology, but it's the way the book is going, and I could stop it, but then the book wouldn't be the same, and I don't think it would be as good. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, my books are littered with the names of these people. So, they appear as characters. They're part of my little book family. Yeah.
That's really cool. What's been your favourite moment so far being an author?
Oh, I can't answer that. I think because my publishing journey has been long, so it took me 12 years to get a book contract, and 12 years of knocking on doors and being turned away just sort of make you feel quite despondent. And, you know, there's no 2 ways about it. My first book that I published in anger. So when the paperback came through the door, you know, the proof, it wasn't an open the box of books or whatever, and this is my paperback. It wasn't like that because I published for the wrong reasons, completely wrong reasons. So when I did finally get my books box of books for the first book, Sound and Cry, from my publisher, for my first book published with them. I'd already been self-published, and I already had boxes of books, and so that took the sort of glitter off the gingerbread, or whatever you like to call it. So I can't really say. It's been a difficult journey, and there's been no highlights, no big highlight. I can't really think of any. I mean, everybody's been kind and helpful, but nothing stands out because it would normally be opening your first back of paperbacks, but that was spoiled. So I can't say that. I can't say there's any. Probably maybe my first best-selling sticker, possibly. That was nice. But
if you were able to spend a day with any author, dead or alive, who would you like to spend the day with?
It's going to be Valerie Keogh, because I've spent a day with her already. She came over to Guernsey 2 years ago to attend the literary festival over here that we have. And we went to this hotel, which is the poshest hotel in Guernsey, with the most expensive wine. Now, for my 25th wedding anniversary, which was a few years ago now, we went to France, to Paris. We took the kids up the Eiffel Tower. We were lucky enough to get up the top. And we like to watch our pennies with 3 kids. But my husband said, oh, let's have a glass of champagne. And I think it was 20 euros a glass or something. Once in a lifetime, glass of champagne, top of the Eiffel Tower. You have to do it. But I think it was £27 a glass in this hotel. And Valerie had said to me as we walked in, I've just been paid my, whatever it's called. Oh, I can't. Oh, anyway, she's just been paid. I'm buying. And then when the bill came, I said, here you go. So a day with Valerie Keogh, possibly Paris, because the champagne's cheaper. But no, she's also Irish. She's also a nurse. She trained in the Meath, which is was a hospital in Dublin, inner city Dublin, and I trained in the Adelaide, which was literally, it was half a mile away. Both now have closed down, and both hospitals have moved out to Tala, which is in the outskirts of Dublin. And we would have known each other then. We would have met each other in the high street, but we didn't know each other. So we just got that history together. And we write, we don't write similar books, but we speak to each other more than I speak to my sister. Probably she speaks to me more than she probably speaks to her sisters. So it's just one of those things.
Yeah. I know, she's lovely. I love Val as well. She's great.
She's lovely.
Yeah, I've interviewed her a while ago now. I have to see if I can get her to come back again.
Yeah, no, she'd love to. No, she told me you were lovely. So yeah, she was right. Cheers.
I'm going to have to change my reputation. Although she's too lovely.
No, don't do that. It's good to be nice. Whatever people say, it's good to be nice. You might end up getting walked all over, but I prefer to be walked all over than, to stamp over somebody. So yeah, just carry on.
Oh God, yeah, I wouldn't anyway.
No, not in our nature.
No, definitely not. So if you were to invite 4 famous people to a dinner party, who would you invite?
Now this is interesting because this came up on Twitter. And I would say if I'm hosting the dinner party, I'm not going to cook. So I'd have James Martin, I'd have Nigella, I think I might have the Hairy Bikers because they'd be good for a laugh. So I'd go for good cooks who can each do a course. Rather than picking writers, because there's too many good writers out there, and I've read so many writers. I wouldn't be able to pick 4. They all have stories to tell apart from the stories they write. Most of them appear to have amazing lives, in contrast to mine, which is boring. They can cook me a nice meal. Think of Nigella sitting there and, the way she eats and her expressions on her face and the Hairy Bikers, teasing her. That would be fabulous. She might give me some fashion ideas and what to do with my hair. And she always looks gorgeous. So, yeah.
You're not inviting Val then, you could be in trouble.
Well, no. Well, Val could come and she could cook something. Oh no, even better, she could be the sommelier. She could provide the wine. She's good at that. One Harry biker and Val. Which Harry biker would I have? Okay.
Dave Myers, isn't it? It's more fun, I think.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you something there, and I've totally forgotten what it was. Gone blank completely.
My nose again.
Would you like your kids to read your books when they're old enough, or is the son that is old enough, has he read them?
My son doesn't read that much. He's 19, as I said, so he's never read. Literally when he was 18, up to 18, he's never read a book. He is that against reading, but then he started reading Harry Potter, which again, 18-year-olds starting with Harry Potter, but he actually read them all in about a week. So he's getting into them, but he wouldn't read my type of books. My daughter's read the first one, so they are old enough, 16. That they could read them if they want. They're there in a cupboard. My husband's never read anything, and I wouldn't force him to. He said he will one day. I think he wants them to be number one bestseller, as in the very top on Amazon. But it's up to him. I'm not going to force him. I don't force people to read anything. If they want to read them, they're there, and if he doesn't want to, it's fine. I think he started reading O Brien, and he said that it was good, but I think he might have read a page. It's, it is what it is.
Yeah. What author would you fangirl over if you met them? What's the one author where you would just lose it completely? Is there any?
Ooh. I'd like to meet Peter James. So he has moved to Jersey, and he just comes across as being a lovely, apart from Valerie, you're obviously your top. So Peter James, apart from he comes across as being a lovely bloke, 18 books now. And I want to go and visit his tower. He lives in this tower in Jersey, which overlooks, obviously he's from the top, he writes in the top, overlooks all the islands. And I think he, from reading his background and how he started, and he went to public school, and he was told he never write a shopping list, let alone a book. If you drill back down what was said about him in his school days, and I think he was expelled. I think he'd have a few tales to tell, and I think he's probably brought all that level of experience to his writing. And he's a cracking writer. There's no two ways about that. He is a brilliant writer. I love his books. So probably Peter James. And it wouldn't be that far to travel because he's only across the way.
Are you planning on doing any of the book festivals this year?
Because I'm in Guernsey now, because obviously with the travel, etc. So if you hear a cat meowing, she wants to be fed, Joe, I'll just give her a bit of food. Would you?
Okay. That's what I was trying to get you to.
Hold on, just give it to me for a second. Wait a minute.
Wait, yeah, okay.
Okay, here you go. Oh dear. Go and have some dinner now, and don't throw up again. There is a Guernsey Literary Festival is running at the moment, but it's all Zoom calls. So I was on it a couple of years ago. I was introducing one of the writers. But yeah, no, it's more, there was sort of standard of Joanna Harris on a Zoom call sort of thing. That's the level they're looking up for here. So, but in the UK, no, it's hard for me to get, to leave the island with COVID, and I still work. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a shame. Well, now they're all starting to open again.
I know.
So you said you're working on books 5 and 6. So then do you know what you're doing next?
I've got an idea for a new series. So I don't know whether I'm going to, I'm in discussions with HQ Digital about what's next. I'm not out of contract with them till September. So there's still time to decide what I'm going to do. I might try and write something in between contract just to see what it's like. I've just got an idea for a character, and I want to just explore it. So my next book with them, book 6, isn't due until September, but I'm going to be finished it in the first draft will be finished in about 2 weeks. So I'm going to have time to do something. So while I'm in the subject, because I'm going to forget, giveaway. So Lost Souls is out tomorrow, and I'm going to give away one copy to one of your audience, but you're going to choose it for me, aren't you, Donna? Very kindly.
Yeah.
So I'll gift an e-copy, and I'll arrange for it to go to a UK winner tomorrow when it's published. Okay.
Yep. So if anyone wants it, then just comment on the recording when it's posted,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
I can choose someone.
Thank you.
Well, I don't think I have any more questions, unless you think there's anything I haven't asked you that you want to tell us.
No, I think I've been well grilled.
Good. That's what I like to hear. So do you just want to remind everyone about the book that's out tomorrow and where they can get it from and all the other ones?
Yeah. So Lost Souls is out tomorrow, book 4 in the series. Each one is a standalone. It's the one about a 10-year-old and an 18-year-old homeless man on a road trip across Wales while the police are trying to catch them, trace their whereabouts, and the problem with the extra hip prosthetic in the, I'm nearly going to say, aquarium. My brain is dead. Crematorium. So that's out tomorrow. There's 3 other books in the series, as I say, each a standalone, and the first one, Silent Cry, is free as an ebook currently, so fill your boots while it's free. I think it'll probably go back up to its normal price tomorrow. And thank you for inviting me.
So before we go, do you just want to tell everyone where they can find out more about you?
Oh, so I'm for sale, not me personally. So my books are for sale in all major outlets, wherever, you know. There's some in Dobbies, which is Garden Centre. There's some in The Works. Local libraries have them. There's Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple, Kobo, the usual suspects have them. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.